Hello, Hopkins. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. I'm Mike Terosian, your host today. And today, joining me as my co-host will be Bob Hamilton. Bob, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, right. And joining us for the first half hour is going to be John Coutinho, who is just logging in now and getting himself set up. So, but we also want to invite you on YouTube to comment, ask questions, say what you want to say. And right there in the little comment sections of chat, and maybe we'll get your question or comment on the air. And you're also watching us on HKM Television, Channel 8 Comcast, and Channel 30 in Verizon World. John, we see you getting in there. We just need you to unmute that mic and start your video on the bottom. I don't know why I tell people anymore. I know everyone must be Zoom experts. I mean, I never thought I'd be a conference calling kind of guy. How about you, Bob?
No, that's right. There he is. Hi, John. Welcome. We can see you and hear you.
Excellent. That's always a good thing.
Looking good. Just tilt down just a little bit so we can see you smile there. Perfect.
Hey, let me just hold it. Let me just move this back a little bit because you talk about being in my face. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Hold on. Don't give me a second. Give me a second.
Yeah, well, we only got 30 minutes, so, but we'll give you as much time as you need, John.
Yeah. Take as much time as you need to look good, John.
Oh, geez. That's going to be a long time.
So, John, we why don't you update us since we saw you last? It's only been about a week, I think. And what's going on in town? Anything good?
We're I think it's same as everybody. We're all trying to get through. It's I apologize for this. I'm just trying to. There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Much better. That looks awesome. Thank you.
We're all just trying to get through, I think. Just trying to do as much volunteer work as possible and just, be out there with as much social distancing as possible. And, but to still try and be part of the world. It's right now we're trying to fight an air war by hiding in a bunker. And that's why, so I still want to, it's, I've, I try and be everywhere. And it's, and I think a lot of people are just getting sick of being shut in. And so, I'm trying to visit some people and just give people somebody to speak to for a little while. So it's like everybody, we're getting along.
Right. And I'm finding myself using this format here more on a personal, keep in touch with family and friends, which is not the same. It is just so hard. But we're doing everything we can, doing the right thing. So, get those numbers down and see things opening up. But my big question for you, being a select person, is how's the governing working on Zoom? I mean, normally I know you don't do the daily business. That's what we have the town manager and the assistant town manager for. But once a week, I'm sure how's it feel doing these meetings, in your home?
Well, no. Well, the difference is, doing the meeting. Like when people think that being a select person is being on TV once every 2 weeks and a couple of events. It's a lot more than that. It's I'm speaking to the town manager several times a week. I was actually just on the phone with the DPW director and the chief of police first thing this morning. So, it still means being out there. If you notice, I was the day before yesterday, I was inspecting the new parking lot behind the town hall.
Oh, the new parking lot. You mean this one right here?
Exactly. There's my truck right in the foreground. Yeah. Well, yeah. It's because the town manager and I were talking about it. And it's a big thing because we've been talking about parking for a long time,
Sure.
and that lot was beat up, and the town didn't own it. So it really came to building up our relationship with Bills.
Right.
Because there are times when we have meetings at town hall that Bills can't do any business, so we had to come to a a realization that we're borrowing that parking lot. We're guests there. So they put signs for town hall for residents going into town hall that they can use it. But at night, there won't be as we won't be able to use the entire parking lot. People are going to have to park up at the common or at the library and such in order to come to meetings. But again, we have a nice, clean parking lot with well-marked lines, and people will know where to park.
So when town hall opens again someday in the future, me as a citizen wants to, I don't know, visit the clerk, maybe pick up a registration, maybe pay some taxes or whatever. The average citizen, how should the average citizen be utilizing that parking lot?
Well, it's well marked now. There are signs right there that say where town hall business parking is. There are signs saying, park in these designated spaces.
But you do know that the signs aren't for everybody. So my point is, can you explain to our residents how they should be using that parking lot?
Well, the signs do say for 30 minutes or less.
Yep.
So that's one of the things. So they Bills would like people to come in, not park there for the day, and maybe for the workers at town hall, they would be parking there. It really is for the residents of Hopkinton to park there doing town hall business.
Right, exactly.
But the town is still going ahead with the new parking space behind town hall later on when they get around to doing that, aren't they?
Right, but in the meantime, we are going to try and level it better and do some line painting so that will also expand it until we end up figuring out whether we're raising the house or not, or at this point we may even be using the house to have other offices, because we're short an office space and all that. So there are a few balls in the air for that one.
All right, so you're fixing up this, and you're fixing up town hall, you're fixing up the way the government runs. Gotta know, how do you fix up a house? What other fixes up can you help us with? And one of the topics the reason you're on today is to talk about some simple home repairs that you can do, and some repairs that you might need somebody else to do, but generally, you're a handy guy.
Well, it's funny, growing up in a house with 3 sisters, a mother and a grandmother, I always got lists. Whenever I visit my sisters or my mother who's across the street, there'd always be a list. Even some of my neighbors, when I go to visit, have lists. And John, like just now, I was just trying to use my Leatherman wingman to balance the iPad in order to speak to you. But with one of these tools, I can almost fix just about anything.
Right.
And I bet you a lot of guys have that. Yesterday morning I walked downstairs, and there was a list from my wife. The first one was fix several screens, and the next one was to remove some rot in front of the garage and some of the fascia board. And and I can't believe that I'm the only one that gets these notes. And so what I wanted to do was to work with you and come up with a series of 20-minute to 1-hour jobs using simple tools and materials that we can all get at Hopkinton Lumber that anybody can do. Like the first one that I just finished a video, which I'll send over to you, is repairing screens.
Right.
You try and send a screen out to somebody to fix. It could be $60, $75 plus materials. And you'll see in the video, I did it in about 10, 15 minutes. And I think I spent $12 at Hopkinton Lumber.
But and this is, again, showing that you don't need to have all the fancy tools that maybe the screen repair place has, who's in the business of doing it. This is the tools that you probably already have in your garage or in your toolbox.
Exactly. Well, even the screen repair place, they would use the same tools that we're using. They probably just have a better bench than I was using. In my video, because my trailer was set up for doing work, and I just moved my summer car into the garage, so I couldn't use that tool bench. That I set up a temporary tool bench out in the driveway to do the video. But it's just like Jobs I was just saying, fixing the screen, 15 minutes. It's a utility knife, a screwdriver, and a screen tool. The screen tool was $5.99. A utility knife, almost everybody has one of those, and a small screwdriver.
Right. Now, when it comes to getting the screen, you want to be particular. Uh, is it something that you want to match what was there before, what you already have around the house, or are you just going to buy the plain old silver stuff? I mean, because there's different kinds of screens, right?
Great question. Great question. That's how I start off the video showing all of that. So what one would do is take off their old screen, of course, and one of the best things to do is take the old screen right into Hopkinton Lumber, and Steve or Nancy or any people there would be glad to help you, and they'll match the screen. There are three kinds of screens out there. There's the fiberglass, there's aluminum, and then there's a pet proof screen, which is just a really heavy duty fiberglass. That one's more of the outlier. So it really comes down to just two different screens, aluminum and fiberglass. Most going up nowadays are fiberglass. They're really the easiest, the most forgiving to use to put. Because, when you're doing the aluminum one, you lay it out, and once you start using the screen spline tool, if you get a wrinkle in it, that wrinkle's there.
Yeah.
Or you have to put a piece in. But with the fiberglass one, you pull the spline out, you hold it a little bit tighter, and just use the spline tool.
So, John, what are these frames? Are they wooden frames or are they metal frames for your particular screens that you're showing about replacing?
Well, the one I did, another great question. The one I did was an aluminum screen, but the metal ones work the same way. They still have the same groove cut into them. Some of them may have a few other staples put in to hold them in place, but most of them still use the same spline material. And that's the other thing that I showed at the beginning of the video, is that the spline material comes in black and gray, and it comes into two different diameters, 120,000, 165,000. And so that's one of the other things. So when I say to bring the screen into Hopkinton Lumber, they'll give you the correct diameter, whether it's the heavier 165 or the lighter 120. Most of the aluminum screens are 120, and I didn't put it on pause. Most of the screens now are 120. I gotta shut this off. Excuse me. Sorry.
Always working, aren't you, John?
Yeah. Apologize.
So were these full window screens, or were they half window screens, or were they even window screens? I suppose they could have been a screen door, but
Right. No, these are full window screens with the one that I did was just a full window screen with a separator bar with a structural bar in the center, because my windows are like 5 feet by 3 feet.
So, John, my question is, okay, now you're replacing the screen, but I have a situation where one took off in the last storm out the window, and the aluminum side got all bent. And I tried straightening out, but sure enough, once I pulled on the aluminum in one direction, it started to split. Is it easy to get replacement parts? Do you have to know a part number? Do you have to know size? Or is that something that you have to give up to the pros?
No, no. Well, at that point, if you have one of the major windows, if you have a Harvey window or an Anderson window or a Pella window, all you have to do is give them your size, and you could go into Home Depot or Lowe's or even Hopkinton Lumber. They would be able to order you one. But no, then you need a new frame. You wouldn't have to go to a pro, but you'd have to buy new.
Gotcha. And if do they sell replacements? Because on one of them, it was just one side. The three other sides are solid. I could pop up the screen. And is there like a J channel or an F channel or a K channel? I mean, is it something that simple, or is it based on manufacturer?
Yeah, that's based on manufacturing. Now you're getting a little too cheap.
Gotcha.
There's
I'm not getting cheap. I just want to do it myself.
there's being thrifty, and now there's just right. Well, hey, I look back. I think back to some of my first cars that I was driving. When your alternator went, you took out the alternator, you took out the brushes, and you put new brushes in. It was like $3. Or your starter. You pulled the starter apart, put a new Bendix drive in there, and you put your starter back in.
Sure.
But nowadays it's all you take out the starter, you put a new starter, you take out the alternator, you put a new alternator. So your question's not too far fetched, but
Right.
but nowadays you walk into an auto parts place and say I want to buy brushes. Most of the kids behind the desk would have no idea what you were talking about.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got a set of points for points. What are points? What,
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. So, some other type of do-it-yourself home repairs, and I'm gonna share the screen here that you talk about. Can you just talk about some of the things that you're going to be covering and how easy these things are?
Well, again, a lot of this comes off of the list that my wife gives me seasonally. As I told you, first was the broken screens. The
Yeah.
next was rotten trim boards. Now it's the trim boards tend to come close to the ground, and here in New England when we get snow and ice, and so they get wet and water gets up behind the boards, and they tend to get a little raggedy at the bottom. And so I wanted to show people that you didn't have to replace the whole board, but most of the time what people do is, cut a 2-foot section off, or you just look up to where the board looks good again, do a nice clean cut, and then you replace it using and then nail it in place, and then using the little wood filler and paint, you can make it look like it's absolutely perfect.
Right.
And then another big one where people could save money is garage door maintenance. Many people have no idea that you should be lubricating the pulleys on a garage door. Inspect the springs and the hinges and everything else on garage doors, because a couple minutes of just lubricating something could save you hundreds of dollars of replacing the door, or having somebody come out. Could be hundreds of dollars just to look at it, and of course they're going to say, "Oh, you need a new door." So there's just some, again, just some quick inspections, and I can just show people where the pitfalls are, and what to look for, and just again to make it into a 5 or 10 minute job.
Right. In the lubrication too, you're just not going to pull out your WD-40, right? You should have
Yeah,
attention to what you're lubricating with.
Yeah, but then there's the like the spray lithium grease, like WD, I believe, also has a light grease that you can spray in, which actually holds in there. The WD is really just for water displacement. That's what that WD is. And it's a quick and dirty way of doing it, but it also attracts dust. So if you can actually spray a little grease in there, it actually gives it a barrier, and keeps the bearings lubricated for a lot longer.
Right. And one thing that you don't want in there is all that dust and dirt, because that just adds more abrasion to wear out parts.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, when we hopefully we will be going on garage doors, do you look at the springs and the cables and the openers and all that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Because I just had a spring going, but that's why this list came up when you called me about doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go over all the stuff that I've just fixed recently. And then I've got another house on Grove Street where there's another whole set of problems. Because it's an older house. Yeah, so we'll go over all that. But one of the more important things are the safety wires that hold the springs up. Some people have no idea that there's a wire going through the springs, so that if it breaks, it doesn't hit anybody or break anything on the cars. And those are things that one should look at to make sure that they're not fraying or getting undue stress.
Gotcha. What else? What else around that garage door? How about the weather stripping, and should a person take it upon themselves to be adjusting their the automatic stops, such as the electric eyes at the feet of a like an electric door?
Oh, absolutely. It again, those are easy things to adjust. And the weather stripping. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about because at the Grove Street house the other day, it was I had the doors down. It was light outside, and very windy, and I was watching the door move in and out, move in and out,
Yeah,
move in.
yeah.
And so I just said, there's something I have to adjust. And it was a simple adjustment. So for years, cold air must have been coming into that garage. And with just loosening two nuts and pushing on it so that it got a nice tight fit against the weather stripping, there was no more cold air was coming in. So these, and since the way I renovated the house is that I have the entire garage insulated, and I have an HVAC system in there. So I really want to make sure that it's tight because it's going to be climate controlled.
So with the, I see the other topic you had on there was gutters and downspouts. Downspouts, yeah, those are usually always falling off down around, ground level. But now you're talking about ladders and so forth. There's a lot of safety to take into consideration before you take on a job like that yourself?
Right, but again, this is where people have to do their own self-assessment. If you're comfortable going up on a ladder to do the second floor one, but the one I'm just thinking of is the one on the side of your garage. That's 8 feet up, so that means going up 2 steps on a ladder for me. And I think even my wife doesn't get mad when I go up 2 steps.
There you go.
And again, so it's the same thing. What happened to one of my downspouts is that something must have leaned against it or fell against it, and the whole bottom of it crushed, and it tilted it, and it just looked old and raggedy. So so this was just how to put the two pieces together and how to use so this one a tool that somebody might not have is a rivet gun, but then one could just use some sheet metal screws to hold it together. So and that would work just as well.
So you have the sheet metal screws or the rivets. Yep, that can work. Another important thing that I find once you have that downspout all adjusted is then the runoff, the actual exit. Do you put a little spill on it? Do you put a piece of slate? Do you actually have to put another length of downspout on just to carry the water away because you don't want it coming into the house and down the foundation?
Go back into the garage door.
Right. Or in your case,
that's what happens with me. Yeah. So I've got a combination of the three that you were just talking about. Is that right? Is that I try and use a more decorative piece coming off the bottom of the downspout, but then to lock it in place using some slate, and then having it drop into a drain, a whole drain system that goes into underground.
good to know that. All right, so some other things that I want to fix outside that I want to share with everybody here. Oh, here it is the on the outside of the house is that light fixture that I just can't get that motion sensor right or anything like that. And the big thing is the latex paints, and that's another subject I want to talk about. And then the brickwork, well, that one I leave to the pro. I'm not Italian enough to do the brickwork. So,
and I'm only pointing bricks. So now we're going to start with that one with you.
All right, guys, let's talk about the repointing of the brick.
Yeah, repointing the bricks again. So that's another one of them that I got to do that in my front steps because over the winter when they're using salt and then also using the chopper, I have brick steps. And then, so my wife goes out there or the kids go out there and they get this, a big shovel or the ice chopper and not realizing that the bricks are soft and, and the mortar in between them is even softer. And they just become loose and then water gets in there and then the mortar falls out. But again, that's one that's not very difficult to do. Right. And you just basically it's chipping out some of the old mortar and mixing some new stuff up. And they have stuff that's already pre-mixed even now. That comes in a tube,
Really?
so that you can just squirt it in, and then you can even, you don't have to use any tools. You use your finger to make that nice smooth area. Granted, at the end of the day, your hands end up looking like mine. When you try and tie a tie, and your fingers sticking to the silk, and yeah.
It might look like that now, but that's all from all the sanitizer the past couple
Oh
months.
yeah, that too. No, that's the hardest thing for me now is with all the cuts in my hands, and then
Yeah.
70% alcohol solution on them. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I feel it a lot. All right, so you just replaced some trim boards and fascia boards, and usually you always have some latex paint left over from, uh, from the actual paint job. What is the best way to store that so when I do replace that rotted board, I can use that same paint again and maintain the color?
Yeah, one of the best things to do is to put it in your basement. You don't want the paint to freeze. Freezing paint really can ruin it. But what I was more talking about was disposing of it. It's one of the things that I
Oh
was,
yeah, yeah.
one of the main ways is to dry it out as much as possible, then pour the kitty litter into it to completely dry it out before the disposal people will take it. And then it's going to be latex paint, and there are some guidelines in order to do it.
Right.
And
With the latex, you can leave it open so it's fully dried. And yes, adding kitty litter is a great way so you're not trying to dump it out anywhere. But fill up the voids with that. And once it's fully dry, it's okay for it to be taken by curbside
well,
in this town.
we should always check on it first because laws and bylaws change constantly.
Right. I believe the last is the latex is okay for curbside here in Hopkins, but the oil base and all the stains, that's what we do our annual or biannual hazardous waste collection.
Right.
That's where that should be saved. And you really don't want to keep that stuff around the house. If you're not going to use it,
Mhm.
You got to get rid of it. And
Right.
you're going to do it the right way too.
Because especially if people store these things on the floor of their garage or the floor of the shed, with the water and the condensation gets in there, and then the cans all rust, and then it ends up spilling on the floor and gets into our ecosystem. So we do want to be careful. You're absolutely right, Michael.
Right. And washing off a latex brush when you're done. You really don't want that going into a septic system ever. If you're on private septic, do not wash your brushes or your rollers in your sink.
Oh,
Can you get away with it on the town sewer system? Yes, but it's still not the right thing to do. Do not, the right thing to do is how? What would be the best way to clean a brush?
Well, it's you try and rinse it off. I end up I rinsed them in my backyard. I didn't just rinse them, but that's probably not the best thing to do either.
Right.
But a lot of times I buy cheap brushes. Actually, I got to go back to one thing. The one job I hate doing is painting. I always hire a painter. Any of the people that worked with me will know that I rarely paint. And actually, when I paint, I buy those $2 paint brushes and I just toss them. I rarely paint, and because it's something my father loved painting. It was just one of these jobs that he would just go over in the corner and just start working, painting a house or a cabinet or something, and he just loved it. Nice quiet work. I'm not that quiet.
Well, I've admired the paint job in Bob's room, and it looks like he probably does all the painting over there, right, Bob? You do your own painting?
I do my own painting, and I do it very well. I've had a lot of experience doing painting, but it took me a while to get all the old wallpaper off before I could get to the point of painting.
Yeah, that's what I'm not going to show. I do not like.
That's brutal.
Yeah, you get to do the spray with the vinegar, and then you get that tool that splits it all up. Oh no, that's not a fun job either.
And you get frustrated and go too far into the sheetrock, and then you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Right. I remember one time my wife wanted to take off some wallpaper. I was coming in from a selectman meeting, and I saw her in the bathroom with one of her friends, just stabbing the wall with butter knives. And I started singing the stuff, and they stabbing it with their steely knives. Yes.
So,
But
so John, listen, we're out of time. This half hour just flew right by, and there's so much to talk about, which is why you're going to be coming back next week on your own half hour, and we're going to be demonstrating these repairs. We're going to be talking about everything you can do yourself around your house. So,
excellent. Pleasure.
we'll be talking offline after this, but right now I have to say goodbye. Thank you for taking your time again out of your busy schedule. And we're going to send it over to Matt, who's going to tell us what's coming up the rest of the week here on the HCAM Hangout Hour. Matt.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I don't see Matt's mic working.
That would be why. Sorry about that. Well, real quick, tomorrow we're going to have Norman Kumalo, the town manager, and Scott Richardson on the show as well. And then on Friday, we have Abby Rosenberg and Courtney Black on. So we have a lot coming up this week.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt.
No problem.
And I'm going to welcome back Tom Nappy as my co-host for this next half hour. Hello, Tom.
Hello, Jim.
And we are welcoming Amy Ritterbusch to our show. Hi, how are you?
Good.
All right. So she has so many things to talk about, so many different areas that she works that has to do with websites and social media and her volunteer projects. But before we get to that, which I want to get to because it's really interesting, Amy, the first thing I'd like to start off with, if people don't know, I'd love to hear your story about where you came from and how you ended up being where you are.
Okay. So I grew up in Indianapolis. My parents still live there, and I came to UMass for college, and so that's how I ended up here. And I've been here ever since. I do have relatives in the North Shore area, so that's one reason I was willing to go to UMass, because I'd been to Massachusetts before and really liked it. So that's how I ended up in Massachusetts. And then we lived in Waltham for a while before we had kids, and I worked in Woburn at the time. And then when we had our second child, we decided we needed a little bit bigger house than we could afford in Waltham. So we looked around, and my husband, he works in Marlborough, and his mom lives in Millis. So Hopkinton was just the perfect place between his work and my mother-in-law, so we could visit relatives. So then we've been in Hopkinton since 2004, I think. And it's a real good location for us, I think. And
yeah. What did you study at UMass?
I was a French and art history major.
No kidding.
Yeah, no.
Oh, wow. So you're fluent in French?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Huh. Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah. I still keep in touch with my exchange family that I lived with in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We just saw them in 2016. We went back to see them.
Mm-hmm. My wife did a semester abroad in England and is still in touch with the family that she stayed with there. I think that's a really cool experience.
Yeah. When it works out, it's really wonderful. I know sometimes it's kind of hit or miss. You get a family that doesn't match your personality, but when you find one that matches, it's excellent.
Yep. And so do you, when you are talking to your pen pal, is everything in French, or does your pen pal know English as well?
So let's see, the host parents that I stayed with, they don't really speak English at all, but the children do. They all learn it in school. And the children, I mean, are my age, so
yep.
They're not children anymore. But what's funny, I was the first exchange student for that family in Brittany. And then they had them for several years in a row, every summer, a student. And one of the subsequent students actually married their oldest son.
Oh, wow.
So he's married to an American. So they're all bilingual.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's cool. What attracted you to French?
Well, where I grew up in Indianapolis, they offered foreign language in elementary, and the only choice was French. So that's how I started with that.
Uh-huh.
And they just happened to have really good teachers, so I continued to like the subject and everything. And then going to France in high school that just kind of really solidified it for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. Yeah. And then what do you do for work?
Let's see. So you'll be surprised. A lot of people say, what do you do for art history and French for a job? But I worked at a publisher in Woburn called Graphique de France, and it was a French and American publisher. And let's see. So they published art too. So they did, they would publish prints from the MFA or the Art Institute of Chicago. and from the Louvre. So part of my job, I would have to call the Louvre and get permission to reproduce their artwork. So it was really helpful that I could speak French and communicate with the French and Canadian museums to get permission. And then it had the art background too. So.
I'm sorry. I'm just really curious about this French thing.
Yeah.
I lived in England for a year back when I was in 6th grade. Did you ever go to England? I know they had the train. You could drive your car right on to it and go between England and France.
Oh, they didn't have that at the time. My parents have done it though. They did the channel, but I don't think they had. I don't think they rented a car. I think they just rode on the channel. But so my oldest son Zach, he's in college right now in the UK. He goes to Cardiff University in Wales. So we went to visit him. It was last spring break, I guess. So in 2019. That was fun, but we didn't take the channel.
Okay.
Now, I know that in England, you take placement exams to determine where you can go and what kind of education locations that you can get into. How does it work when you're from the US? How do you go? Do you have to take those same tests or something different?
No, they consider the AP exams equivalent to the A levels in the UK. So, and it's really all test based in the UK. The whole college admissions thing. It was so like my son, he just submitted his AP scores, his SAT scores, and you're not going to believe this, but it was £25 to apply to 5 schools. That's all he paid. Whereas here, it's like almost 100 per school.
I know.
And then he found out in 2 or 3 days because they look at the test scores and they say, yep, you made it, or no, you didn't.
No kidding.
No.
Wow.
And then if you want to get in and you didn't make it, you just have to go study and retake that test to get the right score.
Oh,
But
wow.
it's a very different experience. So if you have an adventurous child, I recommend having them apply.
Yeah, yeah. Where in the UK is he going?
He's in Wales. It's Cardiff University.
Oh.
Cardiff is the capital of Wales.
Wow. What's he studying there?
Computer science.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can do that anywhere.
Oh, that's great.
One of the things that I ate when I went to France was foie gras. Which is goose liver. Are you a foie gras fan?
I am. I really do like liver pate. I make it sometimes here. Like if we get a big Thanksgiving turkey and there's a big liver, I'll try to make it at home. Yeah.
Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah.
All right, I can't comment on that. I just
it's not
just
for
no
everyone.
comment. All right. So, Amy, tell us a little bit about all the various things that you've been doing for your volunteer work in the community, both where you are now, but what you've done leading up to where you are now.
Oh, let's see. So I'm kind of an introvert, so I would always look for things I could volunteer for that kind of do from home, like helping with a newsletter. Or that's when I first moved here. We didn't know anyone, so I joined the Moms Club. And the person who was doing their newsletter, she had to stop. I think she was having another baby. And so then I took over the newsletter from her, and I could do that from home, but still be participating and helpful. And then I got to know everybody that way too, because you had to email everybody to get their newsletter blurbs. And then it just kind of moved on naturally from there. We helped with the PTA and Cub Scouts, and then later Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Then when my kids got older, I went back to work. And, yeah.
Back to at the same place that you had told us about?
No, I work for the Wellesley Public School District in the technology office now.
Okay.
I guess sort of somewhere in between there, I shifted to web design because that was something I could do at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you get into the Wellesley system? How did you find that job?
Oh, well, do you remember Kathy Dooley was the technology director here in Hopkinton?
Yes.
And she moved to Wellesley. She's the tech director there now. And so I think about a year after she left Hopkinton, she mentioned to me that they had a part-time webmaster job opening. And that was perfect for me. My kids were still a little bit little, but part-time was great for me. And so the last 2 years now I've been full-time, but it was a good transition for me.
No kid. Now, are you full-time on the website, or you have other responsibilities there?
It's expanded now. Yeah, the webmaster is only part-time. So it's the title is software and web analyst. So I help with all different software systems like PowerSchool, Canvas, Google Classroom, things like that. The online payment system.
Okay. So how has coronavirus affected your work?
We have been super busy, as you can imagine. Oh, the high school and middle schoolers, they're pretty well adapted to the technology. They already all had a device. They already did a lot of their classwork online. But for the elementary students, it's hard. And
Yeah.
elementary teachers too, how to manage their class when they're not even in the same room.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
ramp up? I know here in Hopkinton, they started Clever, which
Yeah,
is,
we have Clever.
that?
Yeah. And Seesaw is the new one for the early elementary, like pre-K to 2 uses Seesaw now.
Oh, okay. So were you already on board with Clever, or is that something that you ramped up in response to this?
No, we already had that for elementary because it's really useful for the single sign-on and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But Seesaw is new. We didn't have that before.
Yeah.
So
Are you involved with teaching the teachers how to use technology?
A little bit. So
Yeah.
we have instructional technology specialists who have a teaching degree, and they really help the teachers mostly. I more help administrators like principals and department heads. We had to set up an online personnel action form for that's routable because now we can't get signatures in person. Like people would fill out, I'm hiring a new teacher, and they take it around to the different offices. But now obviously we can't do that. So we had to ramp that up really quick. Because now we're doing all the rehiring and hiring for the fall. Some people are retiring. And
did you have to help implement the learning resources into the website or anything like that?
I did help with the, we have we call it a Remote Learning 2.0 website, which lists all the resources. So I helped them get that set up. But that was a group effort with the instructional technology specialists too. And I've helped with not official translations, but we have to translate materials for families who don't speak English too. So I've had to help send out some emails in other languages as needed. And I help with the mass email system too. So we've had to do a lot of that, communicating what's changing. Yeah.
All right. So from the PTA to, did you say the Cub Scouts?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then did you say Girl Scouts too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, we have to congratulate Amy on her win at the Edible Book Festival.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yes, that was really a cool looking book. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's one of our favorite activities, making creations like that are edible.
Yeah.
Our family does it for gingerbread houses at Christmas time too.
Oh, are you really, really into it? Do you make very ornate ones? Or
we do. We have a theme every year. We've done like Lord of the Rings theme and Game of Thrones one year as the kids get older.
Just among your family?
Yeah.
That's really great.
My mother-in-law comes over and we all do, like we pick the theme and then we each do something that goes with the theme.
Yeah.
We did seven Wonders of the World one year. That was fun.
That's great.
Pyramid out of graham crackers.
Wow. Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So moving on from the Scouts, what did you do next?
Oh, so let's see, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Oh, EHOP is, I guess, the big thing. And I've done that.
Yes, Amy, EHOP, I think is the big thing.
That started out kind of slow in 2007, but it's really ramped up.
Now, wait a minute. Let's not just say it started off slow. I'd like to hear the story.
Oh, okay.
How did the idea come about and how did it go?
Well, I think it started with, I think Nancy Burdick and Jean Birchman were really instrumental in kind of getting it together. I can't remember if it was in 2006 or 2005. There was an override in Hopkinton, an operational override that passed by like 11 votes. It was super close and very controversial. And Jean and Nancy at the time really felt like, there needs to be better communication so people really understand what they're voting on, know about it in advance, don't feel like they're taken by surprise. And, the school and town websites were not nearly, or HCAM's website, were not nearly as robust back then. And so it just seemed like we could do more just to get more transparency, get more stuff online further in advance. So everybody would, so everybody could be more informed and feel like they had the information ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. So basically the three of you started it?
There was a big meeting once at Nancy Burdick's house.
Mm-hmm.
There probably were 10 to 20 people there. I think Lynn Branscombe was involved, Lynn Oslander, Allison Murphy. But Jean and I stuck with it for a long time, and then we've added other people over the years.
Yep.
Cindy Bernardo was one of the early ones too.
Yep.
She's still on EHOP.
So in the unlikely event that somebody's watching this that doesn't have an understanding of EHOP, kind of give us the nutshell.
Well, we started out really focused on town meeting and getting all the information that we could out about town meeting in advance, about budget, everything leading up to it. And then then we also do elections too, because we really like you to be able to have all the election info in one place, all the list of candidates. Even if they're not contested, you want to know who is going to be representing you. Let's see. And then just the last year or so, we started doing a weekly email. We had just been doing maybe twice a month and no email in the summer, with just like a summary of any news articles that come up during the previous week that are related to government transparency, boards and committees. So we really focus on that. We don't focus on community events, really just board and committee stuff that, you know, your tax dollars, town meeting votes, town board and committees, what they're doing, and where you can weigh in, because that's the important thing. Some things you can't really do anything about, but if there's a time that you can come to public comment, we want you to know you can come express yourself.
Right. And tell us a little bit, you just said it kind of started off slow, but then really picked up.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know really quite when the turning point was, but we've been really big on Facebook. You know, we also do Twitter and some of the other social media, but we just started to get a bigger following over the years. We did some, we were able to raise more money now. That helps. We have a marathon runner, and that gives us a good chunk of money that we can use to buy banners about town meeting or send postcards and do Facebook and Instagram ads. We found those to be really helpful, that you can just target them for a couple of weeks before town meeting, push out little bits about all the different articles. And then Facebook really targets you just to people who live in Hopkinton, who are the only people that really think are going to get to vote on these. So that's really all who needs to see it. And so people just became more and more aware of us that way too.
Mm-hmm.
We also try to go to community events and collect email addresses there.
Yeah. And you became a registered nonprofit, right?
We did. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years after we became.
And what was the thought process behind that?
Oh, so some people were trying to say, you know, that we were, that we were one-sided and then what were we? Who were we? Who was funding us? Thought it'd be better to officially file that paperwork, and then when we collect money, it's very clear. We have a budget that we publish every year, and it's very clear who is funding us and what we do, what our mission is, what our structure is.
And is it how do you know, like, roughly how big your base is now?
So I want to say we have around 1,300 Facebook followers and around 1,100 email subscribers, I think, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think even people who don't follow us on Facebook, if other people share it, they get that information too.
Yeah. And do you have an Instagram account that I hear you mention?
We do. It's not as active as Facebook, but
That's a hard one for me. That's a hard one. You know, I was just trying to get used to Facebook, and then Instagram comes along.
Well, you have to have a photo. You can't just post a news tidbit without a photograph. So that limits it a little bit.
Right, right.
And you can only do it from the phone. You can't do it from the computer.
I know. That's what I find so difficult, is that, you know, and now it's TikTok. You should have a TikTok account.
We don't have a TikTok.
Short video dances about town meeting.
Oh, we tried Snapchat last year.
Oh.
I don't use that very much, but
yeah,
you can create these geo filters, I think they're called, and you can have it around an event. Like, so we did one last year for a town meeting. It was like a frame for your Snapchat that you could only get if you were at the middle school during town meeting hours. And then it would have I think it had the EHOP logo at the top, and then it said follow the hashtag for town meeting updates.
Uh-huh.
But hardly anyone used it.
Yeah. It's, you know, they come fast and furious. As soon as you get used to one, there's something different that comes down the pike.
Yeah. But I thought it would be a good idea. Like, you can create your own geo filters for just locations. Like, we could create one for the Marathon Start Line or for the Common or other sites in Hopkinton, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know how popular it is now. And it could be very popular. I just don't know about it. I just don't know. Yeah. Tom, how popular is Snapchat nowadays?
Yeah, it's not too popular. I mean, I think people use it more as a joke to have fun with the filters. But I don't really see it being used in too many serious ways. I think it will grow because they seem to be coming out with some new ideas. So we'll see what happens with it. But right now it's, I don't know, kind of 50-50, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think is up and coming for social media? I wonder.
Probably TikTok.
TikTok.
I'm starting to see a lot of that, and that's more of the humorous side of social media. But everybody's starting to use that now, so that might be the next big one. But Snapchat's, I mean, they were doing good for a while with the filters, but then I guess people got a little tired of them. But they'll probably come out with something else that'll go big. They're still, I think they're competing with TikTok, really.
I think it's a big problem that any social media can start to look dated, and then everybody just runs away from it and runs to something new.
Because my kids are on Facebook, but they say it's only for their parents and grandparents that they're on there to post.
Exactly.
They don't really like to go on for their friends.
I ask my students in my classroom, nobody does Facebook. Everybody has an Instagram account. And who knows what it'll be, next time we're back in the class. It might probably be TikTok or something else.
I'm a classic Facebook, Twitter guy. But I know all the kids out there are starting to use Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat.
Right. Definitely. All right, let's move on, Amy. We got some more stuff to cover here.
Okay.
So what other things have you done for our Hopkinton community?
Oh, so I've been on planning board now for 3 years.
Oh, has been 3 years. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a big thing, time consuming. And
I think that's an understatement.
The meetings are usually at least 3 hours in the evening. It can be kind of tough when it gets late.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of materials that you have to read in advance too, all the plans and the comments from the principal planner and the peer review.
Yep.
So
it's got to be really hard too, because so many times it's got to be controversial where people don't want something next to them, or people would like something in a certain way. And I'm sure, you're constricted by the bylaws and the laws about what you can require people to do.
Right. That's exactly what it is in a nutshell. That usually, I mean, sometimes you get a project that everybody's happy with, but for the most part, people come and they're upset that the thing is being built, and then we can shape it somewhat and we can ask all the questions, but as long as it meets the requirements of the bylaw, we can't turn it down, or else then as a developer will sue us and we'll lose, which would be worse.
Right.
Oh.
Now, what made you decide to say, I think I'm going to run for planning board?
Oh, I was a little inspired by the 2016 election, to be honest. In the statistics, if there aren't that many women in government and in Hopkinton government at the time too. And I was just like, I can do this. I have the time now. And I think that year there were 4 openings on the planning board. So I thought, well, there's a good shot that I could get one of them. They need people. So I thought I would give that a try. And there seemed to be a need. People were so concerned about development. And I thought it could really be helpful in the transparency aspect of it, getting the planning board packets out to people, letting them know they can come comment or email us, and not be surprised when the thing gets built and they're like, I had no idea that was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you had any voice in shaping the digital footprint of the planning board or the transparency of the planning board?
Yeah, that was one of our action items in the master plan, was to make the planning board website better. And so it really just takes someone who sits down with the website, looks at what's there, what's wrong, what's outdated, and then, gets the whole board to approve, but then just goes to Josh in the IT department and just says, okay, we've all decided these are the changes we want. And he's very accommodating, but he doesn't know what every board and committee needs on their website. So we went through and we made it real clear how to find the agenda, how to find the minutes, where to watch the videos, where to find the packet information. Things like that.
Wow, that's great. I really think it's really awesome that you looked for a place that you could contribute, rather than saying, I actually want to do something specific and then trying to find something to fill that need. It reminds me a lot of scheduling you for this episode, because, and it's not what you're thinking about. It's because when I first contacted you, the fact that you wrote back and said, I typically can't do a 2 or 2:30, but I can give you a date and I'll work later that day.
Yeah.
And that was really, really generous of you. And I really value that you're doing that for us and our audience.
Oh, you're welcome. That is the benefit of now that I'm working at home all the time. As long as I didn't have a meeting scheduled that hour, I could take a break and then just work a little later in the
Yeah.
evening.
Yeah. So we've only got a few minutes left, and I want to make sure we touch upon, because I definitely need to have you back. We're doing a little bit of an overview of all the things that you do, and I'd love to have you back to get into some specifics and some deep dives into some of them. But
Okay.
tell us about one of the recent website projects that you were involved in.
So I think, did we want to save the historic one for next time?
Yes, that's
Okay.
I want to give you, I
Okay.
want to touch upon that.
Oh,
and just
okay.
kind of give a little overview of that.
So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there used to be a section on the, if you weren't looking for historic stuff, you might not, but there was this really old website from the early 2000s on the Old Town server. That was just a bunch of JPEG images, and you had to click on the street or the area of town, then the street, and then each individual picture to see the 1, 2, or 3 pages about a particular house.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Josh upgraded the website the last time, when they switched to that new platform, this was still on the old server. And eventually you couldn't even access it outside the building. I think if you were at town hall, you could access it. But we on the Historic District Commission and the Historical Commission, we get requests all the time for information about the history of properties. And we used to, even though that website was bad, we used to be able to point people to it and say, you can find the information here. So last summer, since I work for a school, I don't have to work in the summer. I made a new Google site with all that information. So I put all these JPEG files into a PDF, and then I ran the optical text scanner so that they're now keyword searchable. And so that makes a giant PDF that you could at least search for a keyword if you're looking for a certain house or a certain last name that you're researching for genealogy. And then I haven't fully completed it, but I was going to divide it all by street too, so people didn't have. It's like a 500-page PDF, I think, and that people maybe just want their street or that area of town. So I'm going to be breaking it up by streets later. But I did get an individual photo and individual sheet on each house that's in the historic district, because we have a lot of documentation on those houses.
That's a really big job. That sounds really cool. Do you have any interaction with other areas of town that intersect with the historic districts or historical information?
Yeah, well, there's the Woodville Historic District too.
Yep.
They're kind of a smaller group, less active, but so we interact with them. And the Historical Commission. People maybe don't know, but the Historic District is just the downtown area. It's about 25 properties. And then there are other houses in town that are historic, meaning like they're older than 75 years, and they fall under the Historical Commission. So you can't tear down part or all of any building that's not in the district without the permission of the Historical Commission. And they can impose a waiting period, which changed from 6 months to 18 months at the last town meeting. So we do interact with them if they want to preserve a property, or if they want us to help research information.
So are you involved with the Historic District Commission, or did you just know this information was there and had a passion to organize it?
Oh, I'm on the Historic District Commission. I've been the chair the last couple of years.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah.
You didn't mention that, Amy.
Sorry.
Before I say anything else, are you on any other commissions or boards currently?
I'm on Design Review Board. That's it's almost my favorite because it's very easy. Our decisions are it's purely our opinion about the design. And so it's very subjective, and it's usually quick and easy meetings. People are not upset with us.
Yeah. Now, that must interface with the planning board, I would assume.
Yeah, there are usually 2 members of the planning board on design review.
Okay.
And we look at things in advance and give recommendations like that's too much lighting, or change the lighting to this. They should have different landscaping and colors. And I guess like if we said we can't say that it absolutely can't be a certain color, but we can give a recommendation. And usually people are open to our suggestions. So
yeah. I remember the first house I built, my wife wanted a yellow house, and I'm like, no, blue or gray. And finally I went to the builder and I said, what color would you paint our house? He said, tell you the truth, I'd love to paint it yellow. I was like, Did you talk to my wife?
Yeah, I wonder.
So it ended up being a yellow house.
Well, paint color you can always change too. It's really,
Yes.
or unless I guess if it's vinyl, it's harder to change. But
Yeah. And the
yeah.
builder was really cool because he was like, whatever you want to do inside is fine, but I'm building this neighborhood and I'd like it to look nice. So I will have some say in that.
Yeah, that's something that we often suggest in design review. If it's a complex or a neighborhood, that they not be all exactly the same, but that they vary every 3 or 4 houses, slightly
Right.
different.
Right. All right, Amy, our half hour has flown by,
It
and
has.
I definitely want to have you back because so many of these topics are worthy of just a deep dive for a
Okay.
whole episode. So thank you so much for taking the time with
You're
us.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. And
All right,
thank you.
have a good afternoon.
You too. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you, everyone, for joining this half hour of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. We encourage you to come back tomorrow where we'll have more community discussion. Have a great day, everybody.